Welcome to this overview of the book, Why Did I Do That? By George New and David Cormack. The premise of this book is that if we can understand our own motives and those of others, we will have a powerful tool to help us in our relationships because every action anyone takes has a motive behind it. The authors tell us success and satisfaction in life is dependent on our ability to understand our motives and to create situations in which our motive needs are met, because not everyone will be motivated by the same thing. An example the authors give of this is a United Nations initiative to increase small farmer production in India. The American consultants positioned the scheme as having great financial benefits and were puzzled as to why the uptake was so low. However, once they understood the value Indian culture places on family and repositioned the scheme as allowing the farmers to spend more time with their families, they found the uptake was much, much higher. This reinforces motivation as an ever-present influence in every sphere of our lives, with our motives determining our enthusiasm and satisfaction in every situation. Therefore, to answer the question of why did I do that, we need to understand what causes our behaviour, and this starts with terminology to ensure a common starting point, because we all use language loosely, which then creates confusion. The authors define a motive as a thought pattern with feelings and values which leads to energized behavior. The good news is since motives are thoughts, we are able to learn to control them. Yes, an event may trigger a thought, but how you respond to that thought, your motive, arises in your mind. For example, an advert triggers a thought, however you then decide if you will make a purchase or not. A stray thought is therefore not a motive. Motives come from repeatedly thinking the same thing, which eventually will become the driver of your behaviours, because feelings and emotions are needed to transform a thought pattern into a motive. Motives, therefore, are not simply electrical impulses in your brain, but are accompanied by physiological changes in your body. There are two types of motives. The first is a functional motive, and the second is a social motive. A functional motive is one that primarily relates to bodily needs, for example, hunger, thirst, and warmth. This type of motive will always trump social motives when they arise, as they are related to well-being and survival. A social motive relates to our interactions with the world around us. Generally, this type of motive will dominate our thoughts, making social motives our biggest behavioural driver. Our social motives are derived from our values and are often set in early life. This means they are usually difficult to change, so motives should be looked at as something that needs to be managed rather than changed. The authors define values as the principles and beliefs that guide your decision-making. They are reflected by the things you put first in your life. This means values will usually override feelings. For example, your alarm goes off. You wake bleary-eyed. You snuggle down into your warm bed. You want to stay in bed, but it's also a work day. If your values include keeping your commitments, having financial security and/or punctuality, you will get out of bed and start your morning routine, no matter how much you want to stay in bed. But how to know what we value? The authors recommend we do this by recalling our successes and failures, as by recalling both what we did as well as what we were thinking and feeling at the time, we will start to see the pattern of what is either pushing us forward or holding us back. This is important as the longer we have lived with our thought patterns, the harder it is to recognize them. To test for the presence of a motive, look for where you are acting with energized behavior. This is not to say the behavior is positive, just it energizes you to take action. The authors advise each of us has a personal motive mind map. This map represents where our habits are located and is divided into 3 domains which represent our primary social motives. These 3 domains are praxis, which means activity. This is our need for achievement. Patria, which means family. This is our need for affiliation. And protos, which means chief. This is our need for power. In praxis mode, we are constantly comparing our success with that of those around us, as well as in relation to how well we did yesterday, last month, and last year. People whose dominant domain is praxis are always looking to do better. The praxis domain has 4 regions: performance, self-worth, improvement, and creativity. In portrayal mode, we are looking to strengthen our relationships. People whose dominant domain is portrayal need friendship and prefer to avoid conflict and confrontation. The portrayal domain also has 4 regions, being involvement, team, network, and acceptance. In protos mode, we are focused on helping others and controlling situations. So people whose dominant domain is protos are influencers. The protos domain has 5 regions: loyal, independent, ego, impact, and enabling. There is always the risk that value judgments will be placed on one or more of these domains. However, there is no advantage to spending more or less time in one domain, as each domain has its own value. However, it is likely you will feel more comfortable in one domain and therefore spend most of your time there, which makes it more likely your behaviour will be influenced by the characteristics of that domain. So what shaped the creation of your personal motive mind map? For most people, there have been 12 primary forces: your mind, your parents, your siblings and peer groups, significant others in your childhood, your culture, any languages that you have been exposed to, literature, the media, art, religion, schooling, and your experience of reward systems. The size of each of your domains indicates the degree to which different activities, relationships, and influencing situations will give you pleasure and satisfaction. In addition, our personal mind map has relatively stable domains and regions. We can behave quite differently in different situations. For example, how we relax with friends at the weekend will likely be different to how we interact with colleagues at the weekend, especially if we are the boss. However, this will be dependent on your thoughts and feelings in each circumstance. This then extrapolates to recognizing which job roles you would best satisfy your motivational drives with, and highlights the reasons for relationships breaking down, which generally are a failure to understand or accept and respect our own motives, and either projecting our feelings onto the other person or blaming them for how we are feeling, or failing to understand or accept and respect the other person's motives. An issue can arise when we have 2 or more domains with high scores. This is because it can make our responses unpredictable, as each situation can trigger a different domain each time and make it hard for those around us to know what to expect, which in turn reinforces we not only need to understand our motives, but also be able to manage our responses through focused thinking. This book is divided into 2 parts. The first part covers the principles of motivation, including motivation theory, and the second assists with applying these principles. To help with this, the authors provide a number of exercises with examples to help you to get the most from them. This includes creating your own personal motive mind map and building it into a more detailed understanding of why you make the choices you do. And by doing this, the authors advise you will help increase your fulfillment and satisfaction, as well as understand and relate to people more effectively. The book also digs into the behaviours in each of the domains and has case studies to demonstrate why in some circumstances things go smoothly and at other times don't go as you would expect, as well as suggestions for motive management. Further, the authors look at areas such as managing teams, religion, and national culture. The edition of the book I read had very small print that I found made it harder to read. I also recommend having a note of the meanings of praxis, patria, and protos next to you while completing your personal motive mind map, as I found my mind did not naturally retain this information. However, other than these 2 things, this book is great for understanding how our personal motive mind map developed, how every decision we make has a motive behind it, and if we want to create the life we want, we need to understand what our current motives are and manage these, which makes this a good book for those who want to understand why they do what they do, recognize what motivates other people, and benefit from managing their own and others' motives. Thank you for viewing this video. Please like and subscribe if you wish to be notified when further book overviews are uploaded.